Laufey. Laufey, also known as Laufey the Just, or Fey for short, Nordic, was a Jotun, the second wife of Kratos and the mother of Atreus. Norse mythology. Laufey or Nal is a figure from Norse mythology, the mother of Loki and consort of Farbodi. Laufey is mentioned several times in the Prose Edda, composed in the 13th century by Snorri Sturluson. The first mention occurs in Gylfaginning, where Hei introduces Loki. Hei says that Loki is the son of Farbodi, that Laufey or Nal is his mother, and that his brothers are Byleistra and Helblindi. Elsewhere in Gylfaginning, Loki is referred with employment of the matronymic Laufeyjarson, Old Norse Laufey's son. This occurs twice more in Gylfaginning and once in Skadskaparmal. God of War, 2018. Faye is only seen in-game as a corpse wrapped in sheets and later cremated, but is a crucial character mentioned extensively in God of War. She is the second wife of Kratos and the mother of Atreus. Although she lived as a mortal, Faye was, in fact, a giant, Jotun, of Jotunheim, concealing her true nature from her family for reasons unknown. Her real name was Laufey, and, according to Mimir, she was renowned as a great giant heroine, known as Laufey the Just, for her deeds in helping the weak and helpless and opposing the cruel Aesir and their king, Odin. She was also known to be a fearsome and respectful warrior in her own right, even drawing the attention of Thor, one of the most powerful Aesir. Even Kratos, her future husband, respected her fighting skills, saying she fought beautifully. At some point, she cooperated with Tyr in hiding the realm tower to Jotunheim, cutting her off from her home in an effort to preserve her kin from Thor's genocide. Having the foresight of the future regarding her son's journey, Faye eventually met Kratos, her future husband. They briefly fought but ceased as they shared world weariness and soon after got to know one another and eventually fall in love. 10 years later they built a house in the wild woods and Kratos divulges his past to his wife and hides the blades of chaos in the basement, still being unable to be rid of them. When Faye spoke about the Aesir gods, Kratos decided to listen to her stories. Faye even learned about her husband's true nature as a god as well as his tragic and complicated past and kept it a secret from their son. 22 years pass as Faye gives birth to a son named Atreus, although she initially wanted to name him Loki. The boy was raised mainly by Faye, who taught him how to hunt and how to read the Nordic language, among other things. Every day, Faye would teach her son about the different languages around the 9 realms, or at least the ones she knew, and she also taught him archery. She was also the one who made Atreus his bow. She would teach him about the gods and the different creatures of the Norse wilds. Before she died, she instructed Kratos and Atreus to cremate her body and scatter her ashes atop the highest peak of the 9 realms. Unbeknownst to them, the highest peak wasn't in Midgard, but in Jotunheim, where a mural telling her life and a prophecy about Atreus, mentioned as Loki, was and would explain her origins to them. To ensure events turned out as she wanted, she also instructed Kratos to cut down specific trees marked with a golden, glowing hand sign that would disable the protection around her woods and alert the gods to her presence in Midgard. Sure enough, Odin sent Baldur to track and find her, not knowing she was already dead, driving her husband and son to Jotunheim to learn the truth as they bonded in their journey. When the pair eventually reach to Jotunheim, they discover a mural of all the past events that had occurred on their journey, beginning with Faye who was arguing with her kin. Kratos and Atreus realized that Faye was a frost giant, learning that she had foreseen everything before she died and that she was not immortal. After her ashes were scattered, the pair returned to Midgard where Brock and Sindri reveal they knew Atreus was part frost giant due to Faye, leading Mimir to conclude that it was none other than Laufey the Just, someone he never had the pleasure of meeting yet wished he had. God of War, Ragnarök. Faye makes a few appearances to Kratos in his dreams, where he reminisces his last moments with her even before Atreus' birth. The first dream was of Faye and Kratos hunting together. The second was the birth of Atreus, where Kratos takes his wife and child down a river via a boat. As Faye takes care of a baby Atreus in her arms, she questions Kratos' silence and asks him to let Atreus hear his voice and remember it, and not grunt all the time. Though Kratos insists that their son, innocent as he is, should be left without knowing his past, Faye affirms that Kratos is not his own failure nor is he what he once was in the past. That they must be better. The final dream was of Kratos helping Faye mark the trees used for her funeral pyre, along with the last instructions to spread her ashes in the highest peak of the realms, with Kratos not knowing it would be in Faye's home of Jotunheim. Though Kratos would miss her absence dearly, having experienced the loss of his first wife before, Faye assures him that she will be with him always. Kratos later learns that Faye had once fought Thor in Vanaheim, leaving a frozen lightning mark like in Kratos' first fight with the god of thunder. The spirits who had witnessed the event saw the valley torn apart by a drunken Thor and a rageful Faye as they fought, respectively Mjolnir against the Leviathan. Appearance. Laufey was a beautiful tall, curvaceous woman with pale, radiant skin, deep blue eyes, and long light strawberry blonde hair flowing down her back. She wore a modest yellow dress with brown boots. Personality. While Faye was never shown in person, it is clear that she cared deeply about her son, and taught him as many things as she could before dying and raised Atreus to be a kind soul. She also appeared to be a very close and loving wife to Kratos, as Kratos wondered if he could raise Atreus without her and reprimanded Atreus whenever he spoke ill of his mother, showing anger when Atreus accuses him of not mourning Faye. Despite thinking that she was a mortal, Kratos still described her as better than a god. The Huldra brothers, Brock and Sindri, also thought highly of Faye, making the Leviathan axe for her. Sindri, in particular, considered her a special woman and was saddened upon learning of her death. Kratos and Atreus have both noted that Faye always wanted to help those in need, without any personal benefit to gain from the action. Atreus had clearly learned and inherited her kind nature and desire to help others from Faye. While Kratos would very much like to stay out of the affairs of others, Faye would always help those in need, a trait which endeared her to the Huldra brothers. According to Atreus, Faye shared her husband's mistrust of gods, though not without reason. As the last guardian of the Jotnar, Faye had the opportunity and the hope of her fellow giants to restore balance to the world following Thor's rampage. Instead, Faye placed her hopes in her family. Using her ability of foresight, Faye undertook the journey her son and husband would and left markings to help guide them. Upon learning of her fight with Thor in Vanaheim, Kratos was shocked to see Faye had contributed to the destruction of the valley, on a level of rage he thought her incapable of. Despite Thor being drunk and sloppy with his hammer, Faye was capable of such rageful emotions that she engaged Thor in combat with the Leviathan, their duel ending in a stalemate and leaving behind a frozen lightning mark. Powers and abilities. Powers. As a renowned giant warrior, Faye is an extremely powerful being, enough to gain the attention of Thor, the second most powerful of the Aesir gods, and Kratos, former god of war from another land, and contend with them. The combination of her might, combat abilities, and cunning, would make her an extremely potent opponent. Superhuman strength. As a warrior giantess, Faye had tremendous strength. She was notably able to face even Thor, the physically strongest of the Aesir, and give him a fight for his life, to where Thor considers her a worthy challenge. Precognition. Another standard ability of her kind is the ability to foresee future events like her own death, her family's journey to spread her ashes, and even their possible future. Magic mastery. Faye possessed great magical knowledge, allowing her to recognize and neutralize scorn poles and create a protective barrier around her house that was potent enough that no Aesir god, including Odin, despite his great magical mastery, was ever able to find her and her family until she dispelled it, despite the fact that Odin later had no trouble breaching the same defense when Atreus put it up. It was possible that she used her magical power to hide her true nature, as Kratos didn't suspect her status as something other than mortal even after her death. Spell casting. Faye was quite skilled with magic. She was able to cast several powerful spells which not even the Aesir gods could break or see. She specialized mainly in concealment spells. She taught her son a little. Abilities. Master combatant. Faye was known to be a fierce and highly capable warrior, her skills being praised by even her husband Kratos, a highly trained and accomplished Spartan warrior who became a god of war in his own right, who described her fighting style as beautiful, with Faye having been able to hold Kratos to a stalemate in their first meeting until he finally stopped attacking her. Her skills are so renowned and formidable that she once managed to give Thor, the greatest warrior on Asgard who has killed numerous giants before, what was described as a fight for his life, to where he desires to rematch her. Her skills also made her a competent teacher, as she successfully trained Atreus into becoming a decent warrior before her death. Weapons. Leviathan Axe, forged by Brock and Sindri. This magical axe was Faye's weapon of choice during her time as heroine and the guardian of the Jotnar. She gave it to her husband moments before her death. Talon bow. She made a bow out of a yew tree and instruct Atreus in its usage. It was strong enough to be used as a blunt weapon. Knife. Faye also possessed a knife, but after her death it was given to Atreus as a secondary weapon until it was destroyed, and Atreus used it to save his father from being killed by a trap when he stabbed the knife into a gear mechanism.
If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.